Good morning, everybody. So last stretch for this conference, I'm going to give you a little bit of my thoughts about yesterday. I think the three sessions, at least to me, were very inspiring. And I'd like to share with you what I think the new questions those sessions suggested to me. So we had a first session on attitudes. The second one was on returnees, internally displaced, and pathways, regular versus irregular pathways. And the third one was on labor market impact. I think the first session inspired me to really look into the issue of stated versus revealed preferences. So this year in the US, there is election, and it's very well known in the opinion poll environment that people who have stated their support for Trump was grossly underestimated compared to what showed up at the voting booth. So I think this issue of what I state versus what I believe and the actions I take, this gap needs to be understood better, especially in this space of migration policy. So moving away, and there is an agenda trying to understand that gap between what people say they support or not support migration and what happens when they take that perspective, that attitude, that perceptions to actions, whether it's through voting or other things. On the second issue, I think it was very salient that the issue of composition, the issue of selection to migration is and remains, always has been, a key issue that we need to get around. And I'd like to emphasize, we had a discussion during the cocktail about, to me, it's very important when we are talking about the case of IDPs. Are IDPs really vulnerable, or are the ones who are left behind the vulnerable population? And when we're talking about a population inside a given country, the confines of a given country, from the welfare standpoint, this matters, because if you want to target assistance, conditional on being able to access, then targeting the most vulnerable is a welfare objective for which we need to understand whether IDPs is a positive or negative marker of that vulnerability. And I think that's an agenda that is not obvious everywhere, it's not obvious in every setting, but I think that's an agenda that is worth looking into. And finally, in the labor market, what I was very surprised is I didn't hear about substitution versus complementarity of labor between migrants and the natives. And it seems to me to be a fundamental question of whether when migrants come in, do they take away the job, so we have a downward sloping labor demand curve, or do they increase the productivity of the native workers, in which case we have an upward sloping demand curve. And that question is also equally fundamental because it does explain whether wages are increasing, whether having more migrants is increasing labor force participation, increasing productivity, or it's a competition with the domestic labor force. I think in US, in other things, the debate is tilting towards a complementarity type of debate. But given the low level of skills in low and middle income countries, we are still at a loss trying to understand the structure of the labor market. So these are the three takeaways I have. And without further ado, I'm going to start